had someone comment the other day asking about my Rolex Explorer and what my experience has been with it. I did a video that was probably my most popular video that I've ever uploaded and helped start this channel around how I sold all the watches I had in my collection for one watch, and that's the Rolex Explorer. And what do I feel about it now? How do I like it? What have I loved about it? Have I thought about selling it? I'm going to cover all that today and my general thoughts. So the Rolex Explorer is a model that I dreamed about. When I first got into collecting watches, it was the watch I had to have. And there was another contender with the Explorer too, but it was the main watch I wanted. I had looked at Datejust, I'd looked at different models, but none of them fit my life the way that a Rolex Explorer would, because it seemed like the perfect marriage of something that was elevated enough that I would enjoy it and appreciate it. I would look at it and see something that I had worked really hard for. And there were other watches that did some of that for me, but this made me feel that way. It made me feel like I had done something or had gotten something that just made me feel almost like I made it. And I have not by any means made it in life. But when I put it on, it gave me a little bit of that feeling when I first bought it. And I had hoped that it would do that. So that was the catalyst. That was the reason why I purchased it. And the reason why I sold everything in order to buy it. Throughout the 3 years that I've had with the watch, my attitude towards it have ebbed and flowed. I would say for the first year, I loved it. I banged it around, I wore it everywhere. But you can look at pictures of me and my wife throughout that entire time frame, and you'll see it on my wrist the entire time. When I took a picture after I ran a marathon and I put my marathon t-shirt on, I ran in and made sure that I put on my Explorer because, you know, when you're obsessed with the hobby the way that we are, you want to share those moments and embed those moments in the watch. And sometimes taking a picture of me in a moment wearing it embeds that watch in my mind and that moment better in my mind with the watch. And it adds more to it. And so that's kind of how it went for the first year. And then I bought a Black Bay 58. And I still felt the same about my Explorer, with the exception of about a month time frame when I was in the honeymoon period and I thought, man, I love this thing. I love this more than my Explorer. And it kind of took over my wrist time and then it waned, which is what happens to most watches. When I bring them in, I wear them for a little while and then I see myself moving more towards the Explorer again. I start wearing it again. And that's kind of how the second year worked, was I had the 58 come in and I kind of liked it and I loved it, and then I didn't love it, and then I went back to the Explorer, and I shared all the moments of that second year still wearing that Explorer for the majority of the period, with a few exceptions of G-Shocks and whatnot when I was out in the field and I was installing, or I was in the warehouse. The third year is when things started getting a little interesting of my appreciation for the watch, because for me, most watches in the first year are kind of when they reach their peak, and then I lose interest, and then I put them away, and then I kind of forget about them, and I realize, yeah, it's time to sell it on, and then I sell it on. And if I still like it after a year, it's a pretty good indication that I want to keep either that model or a model like it. The third year, I had my Speedmaster in, and I found that I rarely wore the Explorer. I wore the Speedmaster far more than I wore the Explorer. And I told myself it was because the Explorer was banged up and I didn't want to scratch it even more and I want to give it a shot. But it's because I simply liked wearing the Speedmaster more. I liked how it gave me a different feeling. While the Explorer gave me this feeling of accomplishment and a sense of importance, and not really actual importance, but in a daily life it made me feel like I had done something and I had all these memories tied to it. Over the course of several years, some of those wane a little bit, and the overall excitement about a new watch kind of overshadows some of those experiences and interests and things you've embedded in the watch. And so I wore the Speedmaster almost every day for the next year. And now I'm at a new turning point. It seems to be I'm on a year timeline. Around the summer of every year, I'm looking at a new watch or getting a new watch, and I'm kind of changing my collection a little bit. And so right now is when I'm kind of back into the Explorer. Wearing it again the other day, and I started wearing it for about a week straight. And those pieces that kind of dulled, what happened was over the last third year, I started to look at it as a watch that was a little small, a watch that I wasn't going to get rid of, but you know, I kind of wanted some other piece a little bit more. And I started letting my desire a different watch start to overshadow how much I really enjoyed and it embedded so many thoughts in the Explorer. What I did was I just wore it, and I wore it every day for that week. And I found that I fell back in love with the watch. It has just an interesting, perfect, proportional layout to the dial. I can't really explain it. It's something you have to see in person. I decided I was going to polish it up. And not actually polish it, but I wanted to give it some of that luster that I had when I first had the watch come in and see how much that changed my attitude. And I'll show you before, right now, and then after. And this is not repolishing, this isn't Cape Cod. This is a product called Flitz, and I found it through actually a different channel called Wristwatch Revival. Highly recommend. Marshall and his work have inspired me to do what I'm doing right now on watch servicing. And so Flitz does a good job of keeping that brushed, polished surfaces while also helping brighten things up, refinish them a little bit, just kind of take the dullness out of the case and add a little bit of that luster back. And it changed the watch for me. It made me feel like I had it that first year. It made me remember putting it on and thinking about how lucky I was and how much I loved it. And you know, some of those beat up elements that are nice and help add to the watch and the character of the watch are still there, but they're just toned down a little bit so that I can enjoy what I had liked when I first picked it out of that box and what I had first seen. And I think that that's important in any watch collector's journey to decide what they want to do. If you want to repolish your watch because it's your watch, go for it. If you want to do a full repolish, fine. If you want to send it to Rolex and repolish it, fine. You know, people are really hesitant to repolish things because they think, you know, in 40 years, people are going to say, oh, I wish it was unpolished. It'd be worth however many millions of dollars. But that's just not the reality. Most of these watches are used, loved, as they should be. And then when they get a little dull, if you want to enjoy it the way you used to, you can do that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. Now, I'm not saying you should take it to a random person, have them over polish it. That's when it goes too far. You lose a lot of that. Now, I know I'm stepping into things people will disagree about, but that's kind of my thought. I prefer something beloved, worn, and enjoyed than to have something that looks pristine from 50, 60, 70 years ago. While it's nice to see those, my watches are never going to be like that. I will always wear them, and that's kind of my mentality. So short answer, 3 years with the Rolex Explorer. I can tell you that while things ebb and flow, the watch itself is still a keeper. It's still a watch that I really wear and really enjoy on a daily basis. Every time I put it on, it gives me a little bit of that feeling. Not quite the same, you know, elevated nature or the way that I was, you know, almost crying when I unpackaged it. It doesn't have that, but it still has a lot of that feeling of, I'm so lucky. I'm so blessed to have the ability to wear something like this that most people wouldn't ever spend that kind of money on. And that level of gratitude, I think, is what makes that watch and my experience with the watch special. That's my 3 years with the Rolex Explorer. What do you guys think? Do you have a watch that's like that? Do you have a watch that has a background and a story and something you've kind of wrestled with over time? Let me know in the comments below. Do me a favor and subscribe. Always nice to have people on board and to talk through these different watches and our experiences. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.